the Chicago Bulls get outworked and outcoached in a game against the Houston Rockets, and some of their bench players outplay the Chicago Bulls starters. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the continued growth of Ayo Dosunmu and why it's time to truly unlock Ayo Dosunmu on the remaining 12 games of the season. And we got a positive Lonzo Ball update, but I'm going to kind of tell everybody why we need to temper those expectations. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And the Bulls got killed by the Houston Rockets by 10 points. This was a game where it was closer at times. The Bulls had the Houston Rockets had two separate big leads over the Chicago Bulls, which the Bulls did get down to single digits, but they just weren't able to execute well enough down the stretch to truly be in this game or in a position to win this game. Now, of course, there were things that happened. This game started off with the eye poke to Nikola Vucevic, and that kind of set the tone of the game. This was an extremely physical game, one in which the refs didn't call a whole hell of a lot. They let a lot go in this game, and it seemed to be more in the favor of the Houston Rockets. But again, I'm a Bulls fan, so that may just be my view, a little skewed on that one. But then it's kind of all culminated in a kerfuffle with the Chicago Bulls, in which after DeMar DeRozan had a hard foul, Dillon Brooks, put his hands on DeMar DeRozan, kind of grabbed him, and DeMar DeRozan turned around and elbowed him. I initially thought that DeMar was ejected because of that elbow to Dillon Brooks. He was actually ejected due to the hard foul that he committed on the play prior to that. But him and Dillon Brooks both get ejected out the game. It is what it is when it comes down to that. That's just that happens. Ayo Dosunmu led the way for the Chicago Bulls with 35 points. He did that on 13 of 18 shooting, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 3 steals from this game. And Ayo Dosunmu also only had 2 turnovers, even though he was doing a lot of the ball handling. Nikola Vucevic was the second leading scorer with 16 points and 14 rebounds, 6 assists as well. DeMar DeRozan also had 16 points in his 24 minutes played. This was definitely one of those games where we could have used DeMar DeRozan's kind of magic in the fourth quarter. I think that would have kind of separated this game a little bit, but it is what it is there. Also, we get 13 points off the bench from a returning Kobe White, who plays 29 minutes in his return. He looked pretty good out there as far as the way he was moving, things like that. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well, not terrible either. 5 of 13 from the field for those 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He was in there a lot during the closing stretch of that game as well. Andre Drummond with 9 points, 8 rebounds off the bench. And Dalen Terry had a really good, productive 17 minutes. When you look at it, 6 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Dalen Terry, again, flashing that Swiss Army knife type ability that we know the upside he has as a player, if he continues to develop. And surprisingly enough, Batum as well, only with 8 minutes played in this game. He goes 0 for 1 in this game at all. You would think that, especially with DeMar out, we would play him a little bit more in this game. That didn't happen. But it is what it is when it comes down to it. But the Bulls just got absolutely outworked. Landale off their bench killed it. Overall, the Houston Rockets bench scoring killed the Chicago Bulls. They almost tripled us as far as points off the bench that they had. It just didn't go in our favor. You got 17 points from Landale coming off the bench, 15 points from Holiday, and then the other green on that team, 14 points on that one. So it was a tough game, man. It was a very tough game in that one. Jalen Green had 26 points as well. Dillon Brooks with 23 points in his 25 minutes before he gets ejected. But he did his job as far as he likes to, make things a little muddied up for other teams out there. Amin Thompson with 15 points as well in this game. So the Bulls just overall, when you look at it, they got out-rebounded in this game. Not by a super large margin, but they did. And the outwork part just came down to they went after it harder. When you looked at the way that this game was performed by both teams, the Houston Rockets were the team that played with the edge. And, they're playing with house money right now, are the Houston Rockets. They've won 7 games now straight in a row. They don't own their own first-round pick. So they don't have any reason to tank or anything. They are fighting and trying to claw their way back into the Western Conference play-in. And listen, shout out to them for the streak that they're on. I can't hate on it. I would love for to be able to say that that's our team on a 7-game win streak, but it didn't go our way. We got out-rebounded in this game. They got more second chance points than us in this game. They killed us on fast break points by 23 to 24. Now, points in the paint, the Bulls did eventually win that 54-46, but it wasn't that way for the entirety of the game, right? So this was just one of those games where it just came down to effort, came down to energy, and it came down to execution and coaching, right? Ime Udoka had these players completely ready to go. And I talked about it. The adjustments in the second half that they were going to make, especially defensively, it was going to be interesting to see how Billy Donovan counteracted those, and he really didn't for the most part. Yeah, and it sucks. It's unfortunate. That's what it comes down to. The Bulls, again, failed to get to 500, and this happens every single time. Those Sisyphus comparisons, analogies are real, right? The Bulls just can't get over the hump, that 500 hump that just has eluded the team for almost 2 years. It just isn't there, man. And so, we still got 12 games left on the season. We still have one of the easier schedules remaining in the NBA, so we'll see how that goes for the Chicago Bulls. But overall, the Bulls just got to remember the execution part of things. You cannot overlook how important execution is for any type of stretch that you're trying to go on. Yeah, the Bulls are probably going to make it into the play-in regardless, right? We know that. But how you get there, are you hobbling there? How much confidence are you riding when you go into that play-in is going to be important. And we'll see what the Bulls can do, man. We got some difficult games left on their schedule. We still got 3 games against the Knicks, 1 game against the Pacers, a game against the Magic, the Timberwolves, and the Boston Celtics. And then as far as the easier, right, we got 2 games against the Wizards, 1 game against the Pistons, a game against the Nets, and the Atlanta Hawks. So the Bulls got to lock in, man. This is not an easy stretch by any stretch of the imagination. The Bulls have to continue to compete and compete hard if they really want to continue winning. The thing that has benefited the Bulls is that the Atlanta Hawks, the team below them, keeps losing as well, right? When we lose, they're on a 2-game losing streak. They're 4-6 over their last 10, whereas we're 6-4 over our last 10. And we have a 4-game lead, basically, over the 3.5-game lead right now over them. So every time we have to create a little bit more separation, we don't, unfortunately, but we'll see what happens with that. But one of the bright sides on this season, outside of the Kobe White, it's definitely been Ayo Dosunmu, and he just continues. While Kobe White is down, he really was the Bull that stepped up the most. And then when you look at his last 3 games, Ayo Dosunmu over the last 3 games is averaging 30 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds per game, almost 2 steals per game as well. He's doing that on 63% shooting and 57% from three-point range. The thing when you look at Ayo and the development, right, the fact that how he's been ascending, it really has been sustained, and he keeps adding to it day in and day out. And that's what you got to love about Ayo Dosunmu. That 3-point shot seems legit, and you got to give a lot of credit to Peter Patton, the player development department that has helped Ayo work in his game. He's talked about that a lot also. But when you look at it, Ayo has gotten better every month of the season. When you look at the way that this season started for him, in October, only averaging 4.3 points per game. That was over 4 games. But again, didn't really play well on that. Then you look at the whole month of November. He only averaged 6.5 points per game on 51% shooting and 36% from three-point range, but he just wasn't taking the value. He was only taking 4.5 shots per game. And then you start getting to after Zach LaVine went down when his role increased. Initially in December, he averaged 10.1 points per game, upping his shots per game to 9 per game, shooting 45% and 31% from the three-point line. And then you look at January, where it continued. 12.9 points per game over that time, 53% shooting from the field, taking 9 shots per game, and 46% shooting from three-point range. Also, 90% from the free throw line, chipping that in. And then February, 15.8 points per game, doing that on 12 shots per game, 49% shooting, 46% shooting from three-point range, taking 6 three-pointers per game. And then now that leads us to March. We're in the month of March. Ayo Dosunmu is averaging 18 points per game over this month, taking 14 shots per game, hitting that at a 50% clip, and taking 6 three-pointers per game, hitting that at a 38% clip. He's also chipping in 6 assists per game, 1 steal per game, a half a block per game, and 3 rebounds per game. Ayo Dosunmu has taken a huge step. And I think that, those questions that were asked earlier in the season, where I admitted I didn't know for sure how to feel about it, right? Ayo Dosunmu and the Kobe White backcourt is a backcourt that you can start building around. Now, I'm not saying that the Bulls are necessarily going to start Ayo Dosunmu next year. We don't know what's going on with Zach LaVine. We don't know what they're going to do exactly in this NBA draft. But I tell you what, if you wanted to start Ayo and Kobe together, they've shown more than enough reason to believe that if that's your starting backcourt to start off next season, you're going to have a pretty damn solid, well-rounded backcourt. You got to fill out the rest of the roster, right? You got to get some talent in here via the draft and things like that. And that's really what it comes down to, man. You want to lay that foundation, and the way that this Bull season has gone, right? The fact that we have been playing with a 45-win pace since that 4-15 start, it says a lot because it's your young players that are a huge part of why you're doing that. Zach and Kobe and Ayo have been such a big important part of that, and you're seeing Dalen Terry develop some off the bench, right? You brought up Arnold Batum, so the backcourt of Kobe and Ayo, it went from at the start when I got that initial voicemail, which I think was in November, maybe. No, it was probably December, maybe somewhere mid-January, where I got that initial voicemail asking me, can Kobe and Ayo be the Bulls starting backcourt? And I said, I'm not quite sure on that yet. That is now gone from, I'm not quite sure to, yeah, it can. Yeah, it can. I think you still need to flesh out the roster, and you need to still improve a lot of things, and you're going to need to improve that bench play if that's the case. But I definitely can look at these two players and say, yeah, there's no reason why they can't be a starting backcourt together. Now, how far that's going to take you remains to be seen, right? And we still need, like I said, we still need an influx of talent. We need balance on the roster. We still need more three-point shooting. We need better rim protection, some size, things like that. But as far as the backcourt seems to be set for the Chicago Bulls. I'm not worried about the future of the backcourt for the Bulls, but you just never know, man. And going to end the season, depending on where the Bulls draft pick lies, the Bulls have the option to go need as far as center. They have the option to go best player available to try to take, the best asset that could really ascend them to a team, and even though this is a weaker draft. But Kobe and Ayo as a backcourt it's exactly what you need it to be, in my opinion. And it doesn't, and the fact is that change that they've seen, it all seems sustainable. Everything that these two players have done over the course of the season feels like it's sustainable because of their work ethic, right? Because of the way they get it. Ayo Dosunmu has now understood how to take players off the dribble. That quick first step combined with his strength and his size, those are things that are just putting Ayo in a place where it definitely built his confidence, but it's also fluidity to his game as well. Now, we need, as everybody on this team, to move without the basketball. We need to do that a little bit more. I think if you got a Ayo Dosunmu that was moving better without the ball and more consistently, those things just get easier for him as well. But then when you look at it, on 82% of the possessions that Ayo Dosunmu is the ball handler, it either ends in a shot, a made shot, or a foul. That's something that, that's something that's sustainable, and you can even get that better if you have players moving without the ball. It's really great to see how these players have developed in the first year. Keep in mind, we just hired in this offseason a player development staff. Now that they've been there for a full season, now that they've kind of learned these players and things like that, it's going to be really great to see how they continue to work with these players in the offseason. And I, for one, am excited about the future of the Chicago Bulls with these players on it. The Bulls front office is they have tough decisions to make for sure, right? And yeah, we'll see what this offseason leads for the Chicago Bulls. You already got, we got word and, the thing that the Bulls are going to be revisiting trades for Zach LaVine this offseason, which the growth of Kobe and Ayo and how they fit together may have made them more comfortable to do that. It's still going to remain to see what type of compensation they get back for Zach LaVine, especially considering the surgery, especially considering that the team has been winning more games at a higher percentage than what they did when Zach was in there, which adds to the questions around him. But I think ultimately, just when it comes down to it, you have to make the decision that's going to put your team in the best situation. And that may be getting those assets back for Zach LaVine, depending on what they are. And we'll see, man. We'll see what happens with that. I think this can be it's going to be a fun future for the Bulls. And the offseason is going to be one that I think clarity more than anything needs to be added for what this team can be, what this roster can be. That's going to start off in the draft. I think what the Bulls do in the draft is kind of because if they go after a big in the draft, that may signal the fact that they are resigning to the fact that Andre Drummond's not coming back to this team because of it being salary restrictions or what he may command or anything like that. And then you got other questions to ask on top of that. So whether they go need as far as the center, whether they go best player available to add that type of talent, a lot of the mock drafts also starting to get us Terrence Shannon Jr. coming to us, who is a lottery level talent, but things around him may cause him to drop to that. So we got things. And one of the things to that as well is this Lonzo Ball situation. And I think it's a bigger domino than a lot of people think, because if Lonzo is not cleared and ready to go in the last year of his deal, and if the Bulls do file for the career-ending injury exception, it can add a lot more assets to this team that they could use, they drastically do need to really add that talent to this team. So we got a positive update, and I dropped an emergency video on it yesterday. We got a positive update about Lonzo Ball from Casey Johnson in his mailbag when he was asked about it. And he does say that there's growing hope that Ball will make a return. But he did add the caveat that he's still not clear for contact. He's still not clear for 5-on-5. There's still a long road ahead. And this is a fact that I think we have to, while, yes, it's fine to invest in the human. Lonzo Ball is a great person. At 26 years old, you do not want to, you don't want to understate how mentally taxing that has to be for your dream to be taken away from you because of injury, right? And that's what it is, because Lonzo was everything on the court that we needed him to be. And I understand the hope, the dreams, the wishes of Bulls fans, and thinking that, oh, bet we're going to get Lonzo back, we're going to be off to the races. Let's be clear here. The chances of Lonzo, even if he is clear to start the season, of him being anything more than a rotational player in the NBA going forward are slim. Very, very, very slim. And that is why, I know some people try to say, like, or I feel like I'd be a Debbie Downer or something on this, but I try to be realistic. If Lonzo Ball, even if he is cleared to return to basketball, he's not going to be more than a rotational player, especially in the 1 year that he has left on the Chicago Bulls contract. That's just is what it is. He'll be a rotational player at best that has the chance of, as the season goes on, he gets more healthy, he gains more, to, of course, play a larger role for the Chicago Bulls, but he's not coming back to be the Lonzo Ball that he was when we lost him, when he went down with injury in 22, 21, right? What was it, February, I think? No, it was before February, because it happened before the trade deadline. So he's not going to come back and be that player for the Chicago Bulls. That's not going to happen. He's not walking through that door to be back to the defender, the versatile defender that he was, because, again, what comes with defense and being as versatile as he was? Cutting. A lot of that pivoting on your knee. It's going to take time. And when Lonzo Ball comes back, between the minutes restriction, they're not playing back-to-backs, those type of things, he's already probably not going to play more than 45 to 50 games. And that is probably pushing it, because there are going to be some rest management days on top of that where he just sits, even if it's not a back-to-back, because he's going to have to manage the pain in that knee. And I say this to say that the Bulls can't, and anybody who's holding out their hopes that the Bulls are going to be right back to the team that was rocking and rolling, number one team in the Eastern Conference, just because you get Lonzo Ball back theoretically, first, temper those expectations, because the chance that Lonzo returns is still slim. The chance that he comes back and he's more than a rotational piece, even slimmer. That's what's happening right now with Lonzo Ball, and I just got to put some realism out there, because I see the hope, and I understand the hope. And as Bulls fans, we deserve to be able to hold on to any glimmer of hope that we have around where this team has been basically the last 3 seasons. We deserve that. And I understand every Bulls fan that holds on to that hope. I understand the same thing, the Bulls fans that hold on to the hope that, oh, Zach LaVine will come back, the Bulls will work it out, Zach's going to come back, him and Kobe now going to be this dynamic backcourt, boom, we're going to get off to the races, we're going to be scored. It's slim chances. Slim chances. We've seen what the ceiling of this team is. And yes, that ceiling does rise when your young players step up. Absolutely, you can't deny that. But until you have some wholesale changes, because a lot of what holds the Bulls back as well is personnel and play style, and some with coaching as well, right? You can't get over that. Billy Donovan, at times with some of his limitations, absolutely holds this team back by his rotations, by the players that he decides not to play, by the lack of being able to make adjustments to what other coaches are doing. It all plays a part to where the Bulls currently sit at right now. And I get it. It's frustrating. We all want and deserve to be better. And AK has sold us on much, right? But the one thing that we can hope for that really brings some serious change to the Chicago Bulls team this offseason, in my opinion, is the fact that your young players have showed you so much. Is the fact that Ayo and Kobe have shown you what they've shown you. The fact that Dalen starting to figure out at least how to make an impact. The fact that Julian Phillips, before he went down with injury, was starting to put it together, and you see that Julian Phillips has the mentality. He just needs to put on some weight and let the game slow down to him, and it seems like you got a player there. Not saying you got like a perennial all-star or something, but it seems like you got a player in Julian Phillips. Great. but the clarity that's needed for this roster overall, for the Bulls to really, for us to stop, celebrate. We were prepared to celebrate to getting to 500. And I'm talking about us as a fan base. I've said many times on both the podcasts, this and Locked on Bulls, that getting to 500 means nothing if you can't stay or get above 500 and stay above that area. So ultimately, while yes, the Bulls have played much better since that slow start, while the Bulls, young players have stepped up, all these things are all true. The front office needs to really look at this and decide that now's the time to really make some moves to improve this team and build around this young core that we forged, outside of Kobe White, who was drafted by the previous regime, but you signed him. He's now your guy. You forged this. Now you got to bring it home, and you got to continue to build on top of it. The competitiveness, the continuity cell, all that is all cool. They're all buzzwords. It is what it is. But how do you truly feel? How do you truly go about making a move to really improve this team and where we are? That's the question that's in front of this Bulls front office, and that's the answer that we're all waiting to see for. But guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. Thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.